pilots.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. And there's been a lot of coverage of all the allegations of impropriety and maybe Me Too allegations within the comic book industry. There is an entire website dedicated to Warren Ellis and all of his exploits over the last 30 years involving women in the industry. So times are a bit of changing. And recently there's an article from the Hollywood Reporter kind of talking about this. They interviewed several prominent women in the comic book industry to get their thoughts. And here with me to talk about this is my good friend from Comics by Perch, the Poobah of comics. Perch, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, this is quite a story that continues to develop. I don't think we're anywhere close to being done with it.
I agree. I do want to say this before we get started. If this is your first time visiting Thinking Critical, if you've been coming back but you haven't subscribed yet, it's just time to take the leap, subscribe to the channel. Let's make it official. And then if you enjoy this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you don't enjoy this video and you think Perch is an idiot, because it's not going to be me, give us an enormous thumbs down and let us know why in the comments below. And also you can go to the video description and subscribe to Perch's channel. And there's also going to be an icon at the end. All right. Now, Perch, they talk to a lot of women in the comic book industry, talk about a lot of the issues. I do want to talk specifically about one first, and that is Kelly Sue DeConnick. In the article, she admits that she is one of the gatekeepers in the comic book industry, and she kind of explains how, like, the cronyism, nepotism in the comic book industry puts a lot of people in jeopardy and at risk of being used or groomed, kind of thing. And then she has a solution, and I don't think I'm on board with it. She says that much like Hollywood and television, that comics need agents in the industry to negotiate and work on the behalf of the creative talents, and that will protect them from being exploited. I have two issues with this. One of them is super duper obvious, and one of them is super duper mega obvious. Which one would you like to hear first?
Whichever one you want to go. I mean, there's one big glaring flaw in her plan, but let's hear what you got.
Well, maybe I covered it. Maybe it's one of my super duper or mega super duper obvious. One is, and it was just kind of covered when we had that tweet by Tom Brevoort recently, there's not a lot of money in comic books. Are there really a lot of agents or lawyers that want to get into the comic book industry and represent a lot of the creative talents here if there's no money to be made? And are the creative talents even in a position to give up a percentage of their take-home income from comic books to these agents? Will they even be able to pay for their rent?
Yeah, they will not. So that's clear. There's not enough money for this to go around for anyone. And on top of that, I mean, the suggestion is kind of funny. It's like, well, what they should do, like what they do in the film and TV industry, is to use these agents. Well, clearly that has solved all problems within film and TV, because you do not hear about any kind of sexual impropriety, any kind of people.
Super duper mega obvious. Point number 2, we were on the exact same page. We had not talked about this before.
No, we didn't. But it's obvious. It's like, are you kidding me? It's like, they should totally do what Hollywood does because Hollywood's got it all worked out. No, I mean, what are you even talking about? I mean, Kelly Sue DeConnick is, first of all, I think she's probably thinking a little bit more highly of herself than she is in terms of being a gatekeeper. I don't think she's quite the gatekeeper she thinks she is, unless we're talking about somebody who kind of, does gossip behind the scenes. She's not. Are you saying if I cozy up to Kelly Sue DeConnick, she can't get me a job at DC Comics writing a comic book? Yeah, no, I'm not sure that she could. I don't think she has that kind of pull these days. Nice of her to think so, but okay.
How about Boom? Could she get me in at Boom?
Maybe Boom. Yeah, you might be able to
Black Mask, O&I Press, somebody like that.
Now you're getting closer. Definitely Black Mask. I think now you're in the right spot. But I mean, if you're gonna cozy up to somebody, I mean, go with a Mark Waid. Just go cut right to the chase.
Bendis.
But anyway, yeah, go to Bendis. I mean, that's how DeConnick got in a lot of cases. But anyway, I mean, this entire the problem with all this is that she's right in the sense that it's the industry, it's the gatekeepers, it's this social structure, it's everything else that comics has created that has caused a lot of problems. She's correct about that. The solution to that, though, is not to double down on the Hollywood model, which has the exact same problems, and flesh out the money in the industry at the same time. I mean, agents are not going to work for free. The comic publishers are not going to suddenly decide to pay more so we can bring in agents. And it's a weird roundabout way to say, hey, maybe the company should simply enforce the HR policies they have in place. We have to hire an agents to advocate on their behalf, as opposed to, say, the comic publishers just, adhering by the rules they already have. Seems like a really roundabout way to solve what's a largely simple problem.
Well, it just like screams that she wants to be like Hollywood. She thinks she's a Hollywood person, and people in comics should be Hollywood because they're making movies, in Hollywood about comics. But it doesn't really work like that. The money that comics generates, unfortunately, is pennies compared to what they do in film. And, there is no red carpet for comic books. Yes, people do get to be on the stage and stuff like that at Comic-Con, but people, even at Comic-Con San Diego, they go for the panel about the movies more than the comic books now. It's unfortunate.
No, absolutely. But there's been, this has existed in comics for a long time. It's been treated like kind of an open secret, or like you have to pay your dues, that you just have to put up with it and happen. In the article, they talked about Colleen Doran, who spoke out about harassment from Julia Schwartz. That goes back a long time. And we're talking about something that happened in the 80s, in the 90s, and the 70s. All the different decades had some level of this. And the continual kind of consistent thread in all of this is the publishers always treat this like, hey, we're gonna watch our own kitchen, we're gonna take care of our own house. It's none of your business. We know what we're doing. Stay out. We don't need outside eyes. We don't need anything on us. But they've shown consistently that they have no ability to manage their own business. And so this is going to keep continuing. It's going to continue whether you want to bring agents in or whether you want to try and make it more Hollywood or whatever else. The comical part is they talk about the talent workshop that DC did in 2015 to formalize writing practices for newcomers. Great idea, but a lot of the people that came out of that program immediately got right into this whole mess. So it's hard to say. The article kind of bemoans the fact that the program quietly ended in 2018. Scott Snyder said he's trying to get it back together. Cool. Great that you do that, but it's not like that writer's workshop, that talent workshop, was protecting anyone, because half the names that came out of that workshop are on that Warren Ellis list or on a different list. It's all, we're not solving the problem. We're just moving the chairs around, and the problem continues.
Yeah, it's not really getting down to the core issues, and one of the core issues is that the publishers say these are freelancers, these are freelance contractors, they are not employees. Therefore, we are not as responsible for their behavior, even when they're working on our behalf, as they normally would be. So they get to absolve themselves of responsibility, even if people are violating their own policies. Another thing is, a lot of people do violate their policies, and they simply don't enforce them. So why should they take any of them seriously? But another one is the process. And I think DeConnick is right on as far as how you get into comics. As far as the gatekeeping is, you have to know somebody. As far as I know, you don't really have to pitch ideas anymore. You're essentially cast for the role of writer, rather than going in, presenting your idea in the battlefield of ideas, and what the one winner is chosen as the best idea for that character. That is no longer how it's done. There needs to be some type of blind pitch process where you kind of go through, you read the pitches, maybe they choose 2 or 3, then you get an in-person interview, and they can decide who works best with the company and who has the best pitch for their character. Now, not everybody's going to need to pitch. Obviously, if you're Donny Cates, you probably don't need to pitch your story to go write on Spider-Man or a character like that. You've kind of proven your chops. But to get your foot in the door, to get an opportunity to write some of these characters, there needs to be casting calls as far as we have open pitches. What's your story for Fantastic Four or Iron Man? And that way we don't get like the trash that we're reading in Iron Man 2020.
That's
even
right.
From Dan Slott.
No, I think regardless of your time in the industry, I still think you should do a pitch. And I don't care whether you're Donny Cates, whether you're Neil Gaiman, whether you're anybody. I think some level of formality is important. If you go to work for a big kind of multi-billion-dollar tech company or somewhere else, you still have to prove that you belong there. You can't just show up one day and just say, I'm smart. And they're like, oh, you are smart. Let's just bring you in, and we don't have to have anybody talk to you or anything else. In comics, there is this behavior, like you mentioned, where you get to be buddies with an editor, and then you got a free ride. You can get chosen for projects. You don't necessarily even have to deliver on time in some cases. It's It's whatever you want to do as long as you maintain that friendship. So what do people do? Yeah, of course they compromise themselves to maintain that friendship because it's their way in. And that's easily solved. Later in the article, Dark Horse says that they're going to use a third party to address complaints in addition to bringing in external HR consultants. That's not a bad idea. The part that I like about that particular concept is the idea of external. What this industry desperately needs are people from the outside coming in to start to police it, bring in some policies, bring in some practices, because the old way of doing things is just unacceptable. It doesn't produce quality like we've seen. It produces a lot of mess in comics. It keeps a lot of people who shouldn't be in comics going. I mean, this Warren Ellis thing is kind of comical in a sense, because if you went to his board and you followed him for any number of years, absolutely nothing here is a surprise, any more than it will be a surprise when something comes out around Dan Slott or any of these other people. The CBR message boards had a lot of names in comics, and people who did really questionable things would respond to other posters in very rude ways or would flirt openly on boards. So this stuff just all came out. And if you think here's somebody with a job at a company who's representing that company, has a title, but feels comfortable enough to go and just be goofy in a public forum, you have to imagine the same stuff's going on back in the workplace. It's not a shock that this stuff is happening. But it's weird. There are rules against all this. There continue to be rules in place. Just the comic publishers don't follow them. They choose to ignore it. It's easier to do it that way. And so until they start enforcing them, it's just going to continue.
Yeah, it's still pretty farcical that Kelly Sue DeConnick was like, we need to emulate the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Because everyone's protected there. And you just think about the allegations against like Harvey Weinstein and others in the entertainment industry make Warren Ellis kind of look like a saint.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like the allegations of the abuse of power and what those men were doing with their position of authority over prominent people in the entertainment industry. We're not talking just nobodies. We're talking about names people know and the things that they put them through.
No, I mean, so it's weird that she goes to Hollywood, but of course that's where she really wants to be. That's when she left Marvel. That's where she wanted to be. It didn't work out for her or Matt, and so they're back doing stuff with DC. But it's such a ludicrous suggestion. Absolutely, comics needs to grow up and have some real structure, some real process, some real responsibility to keep this stuff from going on, to have some better hiring practices, to have better HR controls. Absolutely, comic needs to do that. Tons of industries that they could copy from. Hollywood, the worst. Like between Hollywood and maybe the drug trade, that's pretty much.
Yeah, like the casting couch is the biggest open secret in America. Everyone knows about the casting couch. You don't even have to be a fan of movies or TV. You just hear about it.
Yeah, I mean, whole movies made on this stuff. I mean, for that matter, I think she's done comics making fun of this behavior in Hollywood. So it's all very, very silly. I mean, you know, a comment by Madeline Green further in the article talks about comics is a small industry and you can lose your career by speaking out. Yeah, that's a problem. It's absolutely a problem. Another industry. Reprisals. I mean, another industry that has that problem, Hollywood. I mean, so what are you doing here? It's a very real problem. It definitely needs a solution. It needs a serious solution, not, shuffling the deck chairs around, maybe giving some of the gatekeepers, frankly, more power because they're able to broker deals with Hollywood. To me, that's how this smells.
It's an interesting read, and I definitely encourage all of the viewers, if you haven't read that article, there is going to be a link in the video description so you can go check it out for yourself. I'm glad people are talking about this and talking about it openly, and I'm glad that some of the bigger online news outlets in entertainment are kind of covering it. Somebody besides CBR and Screen Rant need to cover this if anything's actually ever going to be done. Don't know that a lot of the suggestions in this article are really feasible or even practical or even smart, but they're ideas. There needs to be discussions and new ideas talked about, and that's the only way we're actually going to get change. So I think this is really important, but I think they maybe the wrong end state was thought of in here.
Well, I mean, I suppose this is coming from the Hollywood Reporter, so they have a vested interest, maybe. But you're absolutely right, and I think this is something that desperately needs to be taken care of. We do need solutions to this. It's what a lot of people have been calling for for many years, and we've had to watch a lot of people in the comic industry tell us to shut up and this isn't a problem and mind your own business. So now this stuff finally coming out is cathartic in some way. We need to now move to that next step where there's an actual solution found. So more ideas, the better, but hopefully better ideas than the ones offered here.
I agree. So, Perch, I do appreciate the time coming here on the channel and discussing this. We've talked about these things before. This is the first time we probably addressed it here in a few weeks. Obviously, the Me Too allegations continue to go on. Is there anything else that you needed to say before we wrap this up?
No. I think we covered it really well, and hopefully, hey, maybe some of your listeners here can have some good ideas of their own. They can throw it in the comments. I think we need, like you said, we need good ideas, so they can come from anywhere. Why not us?
Like I said, I really appreciate your time. And if you enjoyed Perch and what he brought to the channel here, and you haven't subscribed to his channel, right now or here in a few seconds, you're going to have an opportunity to click on an icon to his channel. You'll be able to subscribe to it, and you're definitely going to want the comic book content that he has available over on his channel. Between me and him, you get at least like 4 or 5 videos a day.
That's true. Thanks a lot.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.